This tablet doesn't have a name in English, nor this one, or any of these. In Italian, they are Le Tavolette Enigmatiche, the enigmatic tablets. In German, they are Brotlaibidole, the bread loaf idols. They all date to the Bronze Age. Hundreds of them have been found across Central Europe, and we have no idea what they were for. We can't really read or understand the symbols on them. We don't know who made them. We don't know why they were made. All we know is that they're so widespread that they must have been used for something. Really is an enigma, really is a mystery. Let's see what we do know about them though, and see if that gives us any clues to the purpose of Europe's undeciphered prehistoric tablets. Made a little replica myself just now. Actually, harder than I thought for such a simple object. Researching this video was really difficult. I'm always trying to come up with interesting and novel videos about prehistory and ancient history for you guys, and this one, I think I really succeeded because there's very little information online about these tablets. They don't even have an English language Wikipedia page. They don't even have a name in English. And in my archaeology degree, where I did a lot of prehistoric Europe, a lot of Bronze Age Europe, I don't remember them ever coming up, but I could have entirely forgotten because that was a particularly hazy time in my life. I actually only heard about them because I did a guest seminar at the university in Frankfurt, and through that met archaeologist Holger Kieurg, who mentioned they were putting on a display of all these artifacts and asked if I would like to make a video on it. Through him, I met Wolfgang David, who probably knows more about these tablets than just about anyone alive today.
Das deutsche Wort ist Brotlaibidole. Es ist etwas irritierend, weil diese Objekte sind mit Sicherheit keine Idole und sie sind auch keine Brotlaibe.
They're called loaf of bread idols because they're deceptively small. The biggest is only about 10 centimeters. This, little replica I made super quick, this would probably be one of the bigger ones. They're made out of clay, which has been fired. Mine is obviously freshly made, so mine is a tad floppy, and they have these very interesting patterns on them. Often some sort of indentation, like a circle, or maybe like a flower, some sort of symbol on them, and then these horizontal lines across them, almost like a chocolate bar. Although there are a couple of examples that seem to be much more ornate. So far, around 400 have been found, but Wolfgang thinks their small size and the fact that they're made out of clay has meant they might be kind of underrepresented, could have been easily tossed aside.
Oder in manchen Gebieten wusste man gar nicht, das ist so etwas. Und das ist eine ganz interessante Sache, auch eine Denkmälergattung, die zum Teil übersehen wird, wenn man nicht genau geschaut hat.
The main working hypothesis is, of course, that these tablets were trying to communicate something. And I know what you're thinking, Stefan. I'm a copper merchant sailing up and down the Danube. I love communicating things, but my phone bill is too high when I'm traveling. Well, Aerolo makes it easy to communicate when you're traveling the world. And at the minute, they're offering $3 off. They're the world's first eSIM store. They allow you to conveniently and safely use your phone in over 200 countries and regions. No more ridiculous roaming fees, no more buying local SIM cards, so annoying. No more standing outside the train station because it's the only place with Wi-Fi. Been there. Aerolo has helped over 20 million people stay connected whilst they're traveling. Call, text, post on social media, go down internet rabbit holes about obscure archaeological artifacts. You can do it all. And the best part is, you don't even have to change your phone number. It just takes a couple of minutes to set up. Boom. Super easy stuff, and you're away. Install Aerolo today so you can stay connected wherever you travel, and use my code StefanM3 to get $3 off your first eSIM. It's so easy. Check it out in the description or scan the QR code that's around here somewhere. Thank you so much, Aerolo, for supporting the channel. Okay, I think the first step in understanding these tablets is to discuss their age and their distribution. That's the first clue. Roughly, they all date to this sort of transition period between the early Bronze Age and the Middle Bronze Age in Europe.
Das zweite Viertel des zweiten Jahrtausends vor Christus, also die Zeit 1750 bis 1500. Da circa jeweils. Da gehören die meisten hinein.
This was a time period when a lot was going on. Greece at this time was home to the Mycenaeans and the Minoans. They built large palaces and urban centers on the tops of hills and in prominent locations. It was the start of these so-called palace cultures, a real sort of centralization of political and economic and spiritual activity, it seems. Art and technology really flourished in these urban environments. I've got some of them now. I mean, they're just absolutely spectacular. And at least some of these people were jumping over bulls, which is always cool. That's a cool thing to be able to say that you've done, no doubt about it. Over in Anatolia, the Hittites were ruling their empire from their capital, Hattusha. Their empire went all the way to the borders of Egypt and connected the old cities of Mesopotamia to the Mediterranean world. Crucially, both these cultures were writing. Mycenaeans, Minoans, they had Linear A, Linear B. The Hittites had their own version of cuneiform. Both of those civilizations are in contact with Egypt, of course famously had lots of writing. We know that these regions were in contact with whoever was making these tablets. From artifacts and trade goods found at excavations, we can see that the rivers of Europe, the Danube and the Po, were really like trade arteries, as they are now. These are some really interesting artifacts made out of bone and things like that seemingly have designs from the Eastern Mediterranean. These are small containers, maybe these are for luxury goods. This is a part of a horse's bridle, again with that same pattern on. These rivers, these areas of contact, these areas of trade are precisely where we find these bread loaf idols. You can see their distribution on this map here. There are a lot that follow the Danube, up from Romania and Bulgaria and Serbia, into Hungary and Austria, Slovakia, Germany. Then there's a second concentration around the Po River Valley in northern Italy. These little chaps, these broken slivers of tablet, were from even as far away as Corsica. So it's a pretty wide distribution, but mainly you could say focused on two major river systems, the Danube and the Po. Wolfgang wonders if the inspiration behind these tablets was in some way inspired by the connection with these worlds who were writing, with these people who were writing tablets.
Ich bin der Meinung, diese Kulturgruppen in Mittel- und Südosteuropa, die Brotlaibidole verwendet haben, haben gewusst, sie sind im Kontakt mit Süditalien, sind im Kontakt mit Griechenland, sie sind in Kontakt mit Anatolien, also mit Mykenern und Hittitern und anderen, dass sie vielleicht das dort gesehen haben, vergleichbare Systeme, und dann wurde an der Peripherie in diesen Kulturgruppen an der Donau und am Po in Norditalien wurde ein derartiges Zeichensystem für den Austausch und für die Nachrichtenübermittlung damals entwickelt.
They must have been for communicating something, because all of these regions, like up the Danube and in northern Italy, they each had their own culture. They produced different art, different symbols. These people are certainly not united politically, and probably they have many cultural differences too, but they're united by the use of these tablets. Almost certainly something had to be communicated with them.
Und das ist das Bemerkenswerte hinter diesen Kulturgruppen, die ja in verschiedene Regionen, in verschiedene Stile der Keramik in den Geräten ausgebildet haben, natürlich auch abhängig unterschiedliche Klimazonen, unterschiedliche Gebiete, dass diese verknüpft werden, und zwar ausschließlich alle verknüpft werden mit dieser Gruppe der Brotlaibidole. In dieser Zeit des zweiten Viertel des 2. Jahrtausends vor Christus. Und
so if Wolfgang is right, these are for communication across these different cultural groups. What are they saying? What are you saying? You guys know the stereotype. When there's an object, an artifact that is a little bit enigmatic, hard to explain, the default explanation is ritual. And I'm rather partial to that explanation myself, if you saw the Roman dodecahedron video. But in this situation, that really doesn't seem to be the case. The context that these tablets are found in isn't obviously connected to ritual anyway. And we have a lot of ritual sites from the Bronze Age. It's not like we don't know where these people were conducting rituals. There are only 2 cases out of the over 400 that have been found so far where they might have been connected to a grave, and even that's not obvious. They're just close to graves. All the rest are basically just found in domestic settings, just scattered around Bronze Age villages. One village in particular had lots of these. In the Slovakian village of Nitriansky Hradok, almost 50 of these were found, just scattered across the site.
Und man hat gemerkt, sie sind in der Siedlung verteilt in unterschiedlichen Kontexten. Es ist kein kultischer Kontext.
So discarding this sort of like ritual hypothesis, do we have any other clues to their purpose? If we look at the tablets themselves, apart from the symbols on them, the most striking thing is how many are seemingly deliberately snapped, deliberately broken. All the tablets found so far are either complete or incomplete, which I know is like, those are the only two possible options. But for example, when one is snapped, we have never found two halves of the snapped tablet. It's either snapped and a piece has disappeared, or they're fully incomplete. The lines on them, it does seem to suggest that these are meant to be broken, and it's almost as if when they are snapped, I can't snap mine because it's too floppy, but when they are snapped, it's like someone else has ended up with this piece. It's not at the site anymore.
Und das vielleicht wichtig war, dass man sie irgendwann wieder zusammenfügt.
So there are a few hypotheses that are connected to that. Maybe this is some form of identification. The messenger can snap it or prove that a message came from someone, perhaps, when pieces are reunited. Maybe there's something to that idea. Maybe a messenger was sent away, and when the answer came back, you could prove that you were the messenger or something by reassembling them. But then we might find broken pieces together, maybe, as this message was completed. One of the reasons that it's so hard to understand what's going on with these tablets is that we're we're certainly missing the oral information and understanding that came along with them. And ethnographically, we do know of kind of similar objects being used as a messenger system. These are message sticks. They're from Australia. They come in all shapes and sizes. These are not writing as such, but they were aids to deliver an oral message, like news of a death, a declaration of war, things like that. So maybe these tablets operated in the same way. There's some sort of aid to an oral message, and when it's delivered, snap. Why do different people end up with different halves of them? It's tricky. That's a real tricky aspect of it, the fact that they're broken. One hypothesis I like, which could account for the symbols and the lines, is that this could be for some sort of timekeeping device. The symbol might represent something, and then as it's getting closer to that date, every week or month or season perhaps, snap, 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 a different piece is broken off. And that maybe could explain the variability in how many sort of chunks and divisions these tablets have, because, different things take different amounts of times. And it could explain why they're being broken seemingly so randomly. That's an interesting idea.
Wo man Mengen ausdrückt, genauso gut aber auch sagt, 6, 7 Tage oder 3, 4, 5 Wochen Zeitabstände irgendwie vereinbart. Das ist so eine Überlegung, wenn man denkt, wir haben auch ja heutzutage einfache Systeme als Gedächtnisstützen. Aber weil es so einfach ist es vielleicht für uns so schwer, es zu verstehen, weil uns einfach bislang noch der Schlüssel fehlt.
Wolfgang is really keen on opening up this debate to the public. These tablets are not as famous as they should be, and if you have an idea about what could be communicated with very simple patterns and yet seemingly the breaking of them, if you have an idea of what kind of information you could convey with that, then let Wolfgang know. No one else has figured it out, so he's really keen to increase the profile of these artifacts and see what ideas are out there. If you're in MI6 or the CIA or even the KGB. Hope I don't have too many KGB viewers, but if you were, and you've got an idea about what could be sent with, what kind of message could be sent with a tablet, let Wolfgang know. Let Wolfgang know. I mean, it could even be possible, of course, that trying to find one answer to this problem is a fool's errand.
Sie brauchen ja nicht alle die gleiche Funktion zu haben. Das ist ja auch vielleicht ein Fehler, dass man denken würde, alle haben dieselbe Funktion.
In the past, when we've deciphered lost languages, lost tablets, there's often been a key, like a Rosetta Stone, that we've been able to use to understand this. In this scenario, because of how old they are, they're in an environment that doesn't have written language, and the symbols on them are very simple, it's unlikely we're going to find a Rosetta Stone, right? That probably is not out there waiting to be found. So I really wanted to ask Wolfgang how he thought we could solve this puzzle.
Die Frage war ja, if you ever know. Ich denke, ein großer Schlüssel liegt in den Kontaktzonen zu den Hochkulturen. In Norditalien genauso, in Serbien, Rumänien und Bulgarien, da ist die Vielfalt besonders groß, am Rand. Und der Rand ist nicht der Rand. Es ist tatsächlich eine Kontaktzone, wo sie am vielfältigsten sind.
What we really need to find, it's just one of those things. We need more examples. We need to dig more. We need to find more. What we really need to find is one of these tablets, if it is connected to trade, alongside the good that it is traded with. And that might be really hard. That might be really hard. But there is sort of a really cool example from the Balkans, which might give us a clue to how we can solve this. So take a look at these objects here. These are believed to be bird rattles. Maybe it's for a kid, maybe it's a musical instrument. They're really beautiful. I kind of love the abstractness of prehistoric art in Europe. I really love it. I know it was like a big inspiration for Picasso and things like that. They were found in Ostrovu Mare on the Romanian side of the Danube, along with a lot of other really cool artifacts. Just a few kilometers south in the Serbian village of Pravo, a tablet was excavated, one of these bread loaf tablets. As you can see, they share a really, really similar pattern on them. The front of this bird and a bread loaf tablet, and this same pattern was recovered from the pot of a lid at Ostrovu Mare, I believe, as well. This is the kind of information we need to solve this riddle. We need to find a way to connect these patterns to other things going on in these cultures, these civilizations, and see if we get a lot of examples of this, more examples of this kind of thing, what patterns emerge from that. Maybe we can, use some science to identify the contents of pots that share a symbol on these bread loaf tablets. And maybe if we find a lot of these, perhaps some mathematical statistics or even AI could really help us recognize a pattern that's difficult for us to see ourselves. At the minute, with 400 examples, Wolfgang thinks we just don't have a large enough database to apply these kinds of things. But if we keep finding them, who knows? That's probably the closest archaeology can get to a Rosetta Stone, is finding the connections between these symbols and other cultures and other stuff going on in these cultures. That's probably as close as we'll ever get. Whatever purpose, whatever function they served, the final mystery is why they disappeared.
Man fragt sich vor allem, warum verschwinden sie nach der Mitte des 2. Jahrtausends wieder? Und das hängt mit zusammen, dass sie wohl an bestimmte Kulturgruppen und eine bestimmte zivilisatorische Situation gebunden sind und nachher etwas anderes sie ersetzt hat, was wir allerdings nicht wissen.
If these little things were truly sort of inspired by connection to the Mediterranean world and access to writing and things like that, then why did this experiment not take off? What purpose did they serve that was now obsolete? What happened there? If it was for counting goods and things like that, why did this sort of idea of writing not expand like it did in Egypt and in Mesopotamia and Greece? It didn't seem to apply to other areas of their lives, perhaps, and was, easily discarded. It's an interesting one. They disappear as suddenly as they appear. And instead of, Europe's first writing system, we're left with these breadloaf idols, these enigmatic tablets, baked into clay over 3,000 years ago. Enigmatic artifact indeed.